Gospel music has given the world voices that could shake the rafters and touch the soul. But behind the powerful performances, these singers faced their own mortality. Some death shocked the music world, while others slipped by with less fanfare than their contributions deserved. From legends who shaped modern gospel to rising stars whose careers were cut short, these 16 artists passed away in ways you might not have known about. Here are 16 gospel artists whose passings you may not have known about. Richard Smallwood's quiet exit. After decades of influence, in December 2024, the gospel world lost Richard Smallwood at age 77, though many outside gospel circles never knew he had passed. Smallwood died of complications from kidney failure at a rehabilitation center in Sandy Spring, Maryland, ending a life dedicated entirely to music ministry. For decades, his health had been failing, but as his representative explained, music itself kept him breathing. Making people feel something through song gave him reason to continue living even when his body was giving out. Born in Atlanta but raised in Washington, D.C., Smallwood became a pioneer at Howard University, joining the school's first gospel group and helping found its gospel choir. After college, he taught music at the University of Maryland before forming the Richard Smallwood Singers in 1977, bringing contemporary sounds to traditional gospel. His greatest gift to the world was Total Praise, a song that transcended denominational boundaries to become what one observer called a modern hymn. You could walk into any church, black or white, or non-denominational, and hear that song being sung. Whitney Houston, Stevie Wonder, Destiny's Child, and Boys II. Men all recorded his compositions. Chaka Khan credited him with opening up her entire world of gospel music, saying his brilliance and devotion shaped generations, including her own journey. 8 Grammy nominations over his career proved his impact, though the awards mattered less than the countless worship services his music elevated. His dedication never wavered, even as dialysis and declining health consumed his final years. Andraé Crouch's heart attack. That ended an era when Andraé Crouch died in January 2015 at age 72. Gospel music lost one of its founding fathers. The man known as the father of modern gospel had been hospitalized the previous weekend following a heart attack, and despite medical efforts, his heart simply gave out. Crouch's influence extended far beyond church walls into mainstream entertainment, having worked with Michael Jackson, Madonna, and Barbara Mandrell over his remarkable career. His songs like Soon and Very Soon, Through It All, and Can't Nobody Do Me Like Jesus became standards that every gospel singer learned. What made Crouch's story even more remarkable was how he overcame adversity to find his voice. As a small child, he nearly suffered a kidnapping outside his parents' dry cleaning business, an incident that left him with a severe stuttering problem that plagued him for years. Yet somehow, when he sang, the stutter disappeared entirely, as if music provided the pathway his spoken words couldn't find. He wrote his first hit at just 14 years old, launching a career that would span decades. His music career slowed in the 1990s, but recognition kept coming. The Gospel Music Hall of Fame inducted him in 1998, and he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2003. When asked about that star, Crouch said he was thankful that whenever anyone passed it and wondered who Andraé Crouch was, they could be told he sang about Jesus Christ, which was the part that mattered most to him. The Nylon's tragic plane crash. That shocked Southern gospel. On a Friday afternoon in July 2024, a plane crash in Campbell County, Wyoming, claimed 7 lives, including some of Southern gospel's most beloved artists. Kelly Nalon Clark, founder of the Nellons, died alongside her husband Jason, their daughter Amber Kistler, Amber's husband Nathan, and their assistant Melody Hodges. The pilot Larry Haney, who also served as chairman of the Georgia Board of Corrections, and his wife Melissa also perished. A control tower operator in Casper had received a distress signal from the plane, and within minutes, smoke columns were rising from the crash site. The tragedy devastated the gospel community, which had watched Kelly grow from singing with her father, Rex Nayland, in the Lefevres, to becoming a powerhouse in her own right. When her father retired in the late 1990s, Kelly took over the group and renamed it simply the Naylands, building on the family legacy while creating her own sound. Gospel fans remembered her infectious energy and powerful voice that could fill any venue. She had performed at the Mull Singing Convention at Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Auditorium in Chattanooga back in 1979, a memory she cherished. The Nellon family had received countless awards, but Kelly said in interviews that they were especially honored when Bill Gaither asked them to join the Homecoming Friends in the early 90s. Her father had been looking forward to a Gaither London homecoming taping, but died of a heart attack before it could happen. Now Kelly had joined him, leaving behind a musical legacy that would echo through Southern gospel for generations. The youngest surviving Nellon, Autumn, hadn't been on the plane, leaving her to carry on the family's musical mission alone. Mandisa's silent struggle with depression and sudden death. When Grammy-winning gospel singer Mandisa was found dead at her Nashville home in April 2024 at age 47, the cause remained unclear. The Citrus Heights native had shot to fame on American Idol's 5th season, becoming legendary for how she handled Simon Cowell's cruel weight joke. After he suggested needing a bigger stage, she confronted him with grace, saying he hurt her and made her cry. But she'd forgiven him because she'd been forgiven so much herself. If Jesus could forgive all her wrongs, she could extend that grace to Cowell. The moment humbled him into apologizing. Behind her gracious persona, Mandisa wrestled with depression that few saw. After a friend died from cancer, she spiraled into darkness that left her contemplating suicide. She admitted in a 2017 Good Morning America interview that without intervention, she wouldn't have survived. Friends staged an intervention inspiring her album Out of the Dark, but the darkness apparently returned. Despite 6 albums and a Grammy for Overcomer, Mandisa couldn't escape her struggles. Rance Allen's medical procedure that went wrong. In October 2020, gospel legend Bishop Rance Allen died at age 71 while recovering from a medical procedure at a hospital in Sylvania, Ohio. Known for his extraordinarily wide vocal range and powerful singing voice, Allen had formed the Rance Allen Group with his brothers Tom and Steve back in 1969, creating a sound that blended rock and soul with gospel in ways that earned them crossover success. Their 1978 hit, I Belong to You, reached the R&B Top 30, proving that gospel could compete on secular charts. Allen was born in Monroe, Michigan in 1948, one of 12 children in a deeply musical family. By age 5, he was preaching, and by 9, he was traveling throughout Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, delivering sermons as Little Rance Allen, the boy preacher. He was licensed to preach at 12, extraordinarily young even by church standards. When he founded the Rance Allen Group as a young man, nobody expected them to become pioneers who would influence contemporary gospel for decades. They signed with Stax Records and became the first gospel group on the label's Gospel Truth imprint, appearing in the 1972 documentary Wattstax. Allen sang at the White House for President Barack Obama and earned 5 Grammy nominations during his career. He was married to Ellen Allen for 49 years, a partnership that sustained him through decades of ministry. The Rance Allen Group was inducted into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame in 1998, cementing their place in gospel history. Bryant Scott, president of Allen's record label Ty Scott Records, said he wasn't expecting to hear the news that morning, calling it a great loss not just personally, but to the entire church community. Allen's unique vocal ministry had become an indispensable sound within the Church of God in Christ and beyond. Edwin Hawkins and the end of an Oh Happy Day, legacy gospel innovator Edwin Hawkins died of pancreatic cancer in January 2018 at his home in Pleasanton, California. He was 74 years old. Hawkins had been one of gospel's most influential figures, credited alongside Andraé Crouch and James Cleveland as a founder of modern gospel music. His 1969 recording of Oh Happy Day became one of the most successful gospel crossovers in history, selling over 7 million copies worldwide and reaching number 4 on the pop charts. The song introduced contemporary gospel to mainstream audiences during the turbulent late 60s, proving there was massive appetite for spiritual music even in secular spaces. Born in Oakland, Hawkins started playing keyboards for his family gospel choir at age 7, displaying prodigious talent from childhood. In his 20s, he and Betty Watson founded the Northern California State Youth Choir, recording an album to raise money for the choir to travel to a Church of God in Christ Youth Congress in Washington, D.C. That fundraising album contained Oh Happy Day, featuring Dorothy Combs Morrison on lead vocals. A local radio DJ started playing it, and suddenly the song was everywhere. Buddha Records purchased the master and released it nationally, turning Hawkins into an unlikely star. The song inspired George Harrison's My Sweet Lord and was covered by everyone from Elvis Presley to Glenn Campbell. In 1970, the Edwin Hawkins Singers backed Melanie on her top 10 hit, Lay Down, Candles in the Rain, and won a Grammy for Best Soul Gospel Performance. Hawkins went on to win 3 more Grammys and was inducted into the Christian Music Hall of Fame in 2007. His final public appearance came in December 2017 when he conducted and performed at Davis Symphony Hall in San Francisco, delivering one last gift to audiences before cancer claimed him weeks later. Walter Hawkins' battle with pancreatic cancer. Just 8 years before his brother Edwin's death, Walter Hawkins lost his own battle with pancreatic cancer in July 2010. He died at his home in Ripon, California, at age 61, leaving behind a legacy that rivaled his older brothers. Walter had been part of the Edwin Hawkins Singers early on, singing on Oh Happy Day when he was barely 20 years old. But he struck out on his own in the early 1970s, establishing the Love Center Church in Oakland and forming the Love Center Choir. Their Love Alive series of recordings became gospel's biggest-selling albums of the era, with the 1990 release Love Alive 4 spending 33 weeks at #1 on Billboard's gospel chart. Walter produced or collaborated on 116 hit songs that appeared on the Billboard gospel music charts, a staggering output that demonstrated both his prolific creativity and his ear for what gospel audiences wanted. Like his brother, Walter believed in blending gospel with contemporary sounds, incorporating elements of R&B, soul, and even pop into traditional hymns. He collaborated with secular artists like Michael Bolton, Kenny Lattimore, and Jennifer Holliday, always looking for ways to expand gospel's reach. Walter was married to Tremaine Hawkins from 1971 until their divorce in 1994, a union that produced 2 children. He earned 9 Grammy nominations and won for The Lord's Prayer in 1980. When he died, his brother Edwin said he'd lost his brother, his pastor, and his best friend all at once. Bishop Hawkins had suffered bravely, Edwin noted, but now his suffering was over and he would be greatly missed. Albertina Walker's respiratory failure. After decades as queen. In October 2010, the woman known as the Queen of Gospel died at age 81 in Chicago. Albertina Walker succumbed to respiratory failure at a hospital after spending the last months of her life battling emphysema. She had been hospitalized since late August, her birthday, and spent her final weeks on a ventilator, struggling for every breath. Walker had been singing professionally for 6 decades, recording more than 60 albums and mentoring countless younger artists who became stars in their own right. Born in Chicago in 1929, Walker began singing at age 4 at West Point Baptist Church. She formed the Caravans in 1951 after legendary gospel singer Mahalia Jackson, her friend and mentor, told her, "Girl, you need to go sing by yourself." The Caravans became a launching pad for gospel royalty, including Shirley Caesar, Inez Andrews, James Cleveland, and Dorothy Norwood. Walker's warm contralto voice could fill any space, and her recordings like Please Be Patient With Me, Lord Keep Me Day by Day, and I Can Go to God in Prayer became gospel standards. She won a Grammy in 1995 for Songs of the Church, Live in Memphis, and was inducted into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame in 2001. President George W. Bush honored her at the White House in 2002 for her contributions to gospel music. Chicago showed its appreciation by renaming the intersection of 35th and Cottage Grove Albertina Walker and the Caravans Drive. Through the Albertina Walker Scholarship Foundation for the Creative and Performing Arts, which she founded in 1988, she helped young musicians pursue their dreams. Close friend and radio host Pam Morris called her a living legend whose influence touched multiple generations. Ronald Winans' Miraculous Survival and Early Death. In June 2005, Ronald Winans of the legendary Winans family died at Harper Hospital in Detroit at age 48. The second eldest of 10 musical siblings, Ronald had been suffering from heart problems and was admitted when doctors realized he was retaining dangerous amounts of fluid. His death came as devastating news to the gospel community, especially given his miraculous survival 8 years earlier. In 1997, Ronald suffered a massive heart attack that doctors said would kill him. His surgeon at the University of Michigan told the assembled Winans family to say their goodbyes, insisting Ronald had only hours to live. But the family refused to accept that prognosis. They prayed, spoke in tongues, and Pastor Marvin Winans laid hands on the surgeon's head, telling him to go back and take Ronald off the heart-lung machine because he would live. The shocked surgeon complied, and against all medical expectation, Ronald survived. The surgeon later said the experience brought spiritualism to his medical practice. Ronald himself said he didn't see Jesus during that near-death experience because if he had, he wouldn't have come back. After his recovery, Ronald devoted himself to preaching and speaking about his experiences, becoming a living testimony to the power of prayer. He returned to performing with his brothers on the Together We Stand tour in 2002, the first time he'd performed with them in a decade. His final album, Family and Friends 5: A Celebration, was released in January 2005, recorded live the previous May at Greater Grace Temple in Detroit. Gospel artist Donnie McClurkin said Ronald was part of gospel history, noting that he got his start in recording through Ronald Winans' Family and Friends in 1987. LaShawn Pace's kidney failure. After years of health struggles, gospel powerhouse. LaShawn Pace died in March 2022 at age 60 of organ failure after 5 years on dialysis. Born Terry and LaShawn Pace in the small Atlanta community of Pool Creek, she was the 5th of 10 children raised in a strict Pentecostal household where secular music was forbidden. The family even muted television commercials that contained secular songs. In that environment, the Pace sisters developed both extraordinary musical gifts and, according to interviews, family-wide problems with food and weight. LaShawn's powerful soprano voice made her a standout in the Anointed Pace Sisters, the gospel group she formed with her siblings that became one of the most successful female gospel groups in history. Her 1990 solo debut, He Lives, reached number 2 on Billboard's gospel charts, and the album's signature song, I Know I've Been Changed, became a modern gospel classic. Tyler Perry loved the song so much, he wrote a musical by the same name, casting Pace in it. Perry became a close friend, even buying a house for Pace's ailing mother in 2018 when he learned of the family's struggles. Despite her success, Pace never thought of herself as a star, preferring the title evangelist. Her sister Latrice said LaShawn showed them how to love God and His people while keeping the mission at the forefront without being tainted by the industry. Record labels never understood her because she refused to compromise her calling for commercial success. Pace's health problems mounted over the years: diabetes, weight struggles, congestive heart failure that temporarily confined her to a wheelchair, an esophagus rupture that nearly killed her, and eventually kidney failure. In a May 2021 interview, she implored listeners to take care of their bodies, calling them the temple of God. In her final months, she recorded videos preaching, singing, and holding virtual communion with viewers, perhaps knowing her time was short. James Cleveland's Controversial Death and Hidden Life. When the King of Gospel died in February 1991 at age 59, gospel music lost its most influential figure. The official cause was congestive heart failure, but persistent rumors suggested AIDS, fueled by reports of his frail appearance in final months. Cleveland's funeral at the Shrine Auditorium drew over 8,000 mourners in a 4-hour service that included multiple costume changes for the deceased. Within a year, controversies erupted. Andre MacIsaac filed suit claiming to be Cleveland's adopted son, seeking a share of the estate valued between $4 and $6 million. Jean Irvin claimed she was the mother of Cleveland's daughter, LaShawn. Most damaging was Christopher Harris's lawsuit, alleging Cleveland sexually abused him for 5 years and infected him with HIV. Born in Chicago in 1931, Cleveland taught 9-year-old Aretha Franklin how to sing gospel and wrote over 400 songs. His 1963 album, Peace Be Still, stayed on Billboard charts for 15 years. He founded Cornerstone Institutional Baptist Church, growing it to over 7,000 members, and established the Gospel Music Workshop of America that launched countless careers. Whatever his private struggles, Cleveland's impact on gospel remains undeniable. Osinachi Nwachukwu's death from alleged domestic violence, Nigerian gospel sensation. Osinachi Nwachukwu died in April 2022 at age 42 under circumstances that shocked the African gospel community. Initially, reports claimed she died of throat cancer, but the truth proved far darker. According to multiple sources, Osinachi suffered repeated physical abuse at the hands of her husband, Peter Nwachukwu, and her death was the tragic culmination of years of domestic violence. Osinachi had risen to fame through the single Ekwueme by Prosper Ochimana, a song that became one of the biggest gospel hits in Nigeria. Her powerful voice and spirit-filled performances made her a beloved figure who had featured on major songs including Nara Ekele by Pastor Paul Anenchi and You No Dey Use Me Play by Emma. Born into an Igbo family in Owerri, she attended private schools and university before fully dedicating herself to gospel ministry. Most of her songs were written in Igbo language, connecting deeply with Nigerian audiences. Her career reached its peak in 2017 with Ekwueme, but behind the success, her home life was reportedly a nightmare. Peter Nwachukwu was arrested in connection with her death, and in a landmark case for domestic violence awareness in Nigeria, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. The case sparked national conversations about abuse within Christian marriages and the pressure women face to stay in dangerous situations because of religious beliefs about the sanctity of marriage. Osinachi's death became a rallying cry for advocates working to protect women in similar circumstances. Sammy Okposo's sudden heart attack. In November 2022, Nigerian gospel minister Sammy Okposo collapsed after a heart attack and died, sending shockwaves through the Christian community in Nigeria and beyond. Regarded by many as one of the greatest gospel ministers the country had ever seen, Okposo had spent over 2 decades as a force in gospel music, with hits including Most Wanted, Amazing Grace, Welu Welu, and Naija Praise. He was rushed to the hospital after collapsing, but all attempts to resuscitate him failed. The gospel community struggled to process the loss of someone they considered vital and irreplaceable. Okposo's death came during a complicated period in his life. Earlier in 2022, he had publicly confessed to having an extramarital affair while overseas, posting a lengthy apology on social media to his wife Ozioma and the Christian community. The confession sparked intense debate about accountability and forgiveness in ministry, with some praising his honesty while others questioned whether he should step back from public ministry. He took a break from performing and social media, using the time for what he described as personal reflection and restoration. When he returned to public ministry, questions about his judgment and character continued to follow him. His sudden death at a relatively young age left many wondering if the stress of the scandal and its aftermath had contributed to his heart problems. Colleagues remembered him as a talented producer and performer whose music touched countless lives, even as they acknowledged the complexity of his final year. J.B. Mance's death in a house fire. In December 2024, 97-year-old gospel legend J.B. Mance died in a house fire at his Jackson, Mississippi home. Known as the Godfather of Gospel, Mance had led the group J.B. Mance and the Soul Conciliators for decades, creating songs like Hold On and Don't Trust a Snake that became standards in the gospel community. Jackson Fire Chief Willie Owens confirmed that firefighters discovered Mance's body inside the burned home on Newport Street after responding to a fire call around 2 a.m. The loss devastated Jackson's musical community, which had watched Mance become a national figure through his decades of performing. Blues artist Stevie J. Blues, who had toured with Mance as his guitarist for years, said Mance taught him how to be professional, how to be a gentleman, and how to respect his craft. Mance was the kind of performer everyone focused on when he took the stage, a commanding presence even in his 90s. He was beloved not just for his music, but for his kindness and presence in the community. Tyrone Bully, owner of Bully's Soul Food Restaurant, said Mance visited weekly to pick up his favorite meals: oxtails and vegetable beef soup. A picture hung in the restaurant showing Mance smiling wide and pointing to a snake, referencing his famous song, "Never Trust a Snake." For Mance to die so tragically in a fire felt cruel to those who knew him. Stevie J Blues said that while he was sad about the tragic circumstances, he took comfort knowing Mance was now in heaven making music with the angels. Berenice Pace's undisclosed health complications. In January 2021, Berenice Pace of the Anointed Pace Sisters died at age 62 from health complications that the family chose not to disclose publicly. As the oldest of the Pace sisters, Berenice had been a founding member of the group and a powerful vocalist in her own right. Her death came at an especially difficult time for the family, occurring less than 6 months after their mother, Pastor Betty Ann Pace, died of stage 5 kidney failure in July 2020. The family was still grieving that loss when Berenice's health crisis hit. The Pace sisters had grown up in Pool Creek, Atlanta, raised in a strict Pentecostal household that forbade secular music and demanded complete dedication to gospel ministry. Berenice's voice combined power and emotion in ways that moved audiences to tears. She sang with conviction that came from lived experience, having weathered personal storms that deepened her faith. The family's pattern of health problems suggested genetic factors or lifestyle challenges that affected multiple sisters. Berenice's sister LaShun would die just over a year later from kidney failure, continuing the tragic pattern. Tyler Perry, who maintained close ties with the Pace family, was deeply affected by these losses. He had granted the family's dying mother her wish to own a home in 2018, a gesture that meant the world to the sisters. Berenice's death left a hole in the group that could never be filled. The remaining sisters soldiered on, determined to honor their mother and sister by continuing the musical ministry that had defined their lives. But the joy was tempered by absence, every performance a reminder of voices now singing in heaven's choir. Kefi's mysterious death. During a flight, Nigerian gospel artist Kefi, born Evelyn Irikefe Don Momo, collapsed during a flight between Chicago and Los Angeles, slipping into a coma from which she never recovered. The Warri-born singer died days later, with various reports suggesting pregnancy complications, seizures, or cardiac events. But no clear answers emerged. Her energetic performances and joyful spirit had made her a favorite at gospel concerts. She was married to producer Teddy Don Momo, who watched helplessly as his wife slipped away at 30,000 feet. In Nigerian gospel circles, Kefi's death became a cautionary tale about life's fragility, her music living on through recordings, even as her physical absence reminded everyone how quickly circumstances could change. Chinedu Nwadaki's 3-year cancer battle, Nigerian gospel musician Chinedu Nwadaki died in 2022 after fighting cancer for nearly 3 years. Famous for his Igbo language songs, including the Okugbajie Akajin Gozim medley, Nwadaki had been a prominent figure in Nigerian gospel music for years before his diagnosis. His cancer battle was public and painful, with fans following his deteriorating health through social media updates and prayer requests. He was married to Sorochi Dora Nwadake for 10 years, and they had 3 children after losing their youngest in 2020, a tragedy that compounded the family's suffering. Watching their father waste away from disease while still trying to maintain hope took an enormous toll on the surviving children. Nwadaki's story highlighted the limited cancer treatment options available in Nigeria, where access to advanced care often requires traveling abroad or securing prohibitively expensive private treatment. Many Nigerian believers struggled with the theological implications of a gospel singer dying from disease despite fervent prayers for healing. Some saw it as a test of faith, while others questioned why God would allow a devoted servant to suffer so much. Nwadake's musical legacy remains strong within the Igbo gospel community, where his songs continue to be used in worship services. His voice, captured on recordings, still lifted congregations even though his body had succumbed to illness. Aduke Gold's surgery complications. Nigerian gospel artist Aduke Gold died in August 2024 after undergoing surgery for what was initially reported as fibroid removal. She was relatively young, and her death sparked intense online discussion about what really happened. Gospel artist Yemi Sande first reported that Aduke died following fibroid surgery, but her older brother later clarified that she had actually been struggling with cervical cancer and went into surgery to treat that condition, not fibroids. The discrepancy in reported causes fueled conspiracy theories and finger-pointing about who knew what and when. Some accused the family of hiding the cancer diagnosis to avoid stigma, while others suggested the medical team bore responsibility for the surgical outcome. The controversy overshadowed Aduke's musical contributions and the genuine grief of those who loved her. She had been part of Nigeria's vibrant gospel scene, performing at churches and events throughout the country. Her voice carried the distinctive warmth that made Nigerian gospel music so appealing, blending traditional sounds with contemporary production. The confusion surrounding her death highlighted ongoing challenges in Nigeria's healthcare system and the cultural factors that sometimes prevent open discussion about serious illnesses. Whether she died from complications of fibroid surgery or cervical cancer treatment, the outcome was the same: a talented gospel artist gone too soon, leaving behind unfinished music and unanswered questions. The pattern behind the losses. Looking at these 16 deaths together reveals troubling patterns. Multiple artists died from kidney failure and diabetes complications, several from heart problems in their 40s and 50s, and others from cancers that might have been caught earlier. Weight and mental health struggles affected multiple families, while healthcare access proved especially difficult for Nigerian artists. Osinachi's death from alleged domestic violence exposed how religious beliefs about marriage can trap women in dangerous situations. What unites these stories is a sense of preventable tragedy. The gospel community's emphasis on faith over medical intervention sometimes prevents artists from seeking help until too late, while financial pressures force performers to ignore failing health. These 16 deaths represent not just individual losses, but systemic issues the gospel world must address to protect its artists.